Rock and roll. Kia ora,
Cool.
everybody, what's up? It is Robett. We are live, we are rolling, and I am lucky enough to be joined by New Zealand weapon, world class New Zealander, awesome human, Claudia Batten. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. I'm
And just
awesome.
before we start, could you quickly please show everyone your 3.5 cups full of urine, which I think you
Yeah.
happily. We're
Quarant
battling.
quarantine is desperate times. Desperate times. We've got to hydrate.
It's like Survivor.
It's actually ginger tea, people. It's ginger tea.
Okay. Um, I'm not even going to bother about doing the big intro of all the different fingers you got pies. All I can say is you've got fingers and lots of pies, and they're a big pies, so that's good. Where are you right now? What is popping? How's fams? I know, but the others don't. Please give us a quick 101 of where you're at and what's going on.
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. Things are pretty good here. I think we've been in lockdown, I think for 5 weeks, but honestly, I'm losing count at this stage. My family's good. I've got family in Sydney and family in Wellington. I think the hardest thing for me about this is feeling that separated from my folks. And I'm used
Mm.
to being back quite a bit. And truly, this starts raising some pretty deep questions about choosing to live offshore, if I'm honest. Let's just like start right out with something
Yeah,
really deep.
shit,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll, oh, sweet. Eddie Von Dazzled just jumped in. Love Claudia. Such a boss. How,
Eddie's
how
the
do you know?
best.
How do you
Oh
know
shit,
Eddie?
I'm not wearing Eddie. Oh, I'm
Oh,
so
Eddie, your
bad
stuff.
right now. I
Claudia's
usually
Claudia's switching out on you, bro. She's coming. She's coming to the dark side. Oh no,
ah,
so me and Eddie. Oh, stuff it. This is our show. Oi, so me and Eddie go back like 20 years. We started
oh
snowboarding together back in Christchurch, Mount Hart. We're on the Christchurch rookie team together. He was one of the raddest like shredders. Like he was fully. We're in the same game. I kept going on the snowboard world. He went off, and the next thing I popped back, and he's like, I don't know, 26. And he's like the working style director of some creative gnarly shit, and he's just full flossed out the pocket squares and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I get invited to this like gnarly release thing, and I roll up, and he's just got like some $10,000 suit on, and he's just doing the most baller ass shit, and I
no.
just rolled up. I'm like, Eddie,
Yeah.
the Eddie,
But he was born to do this. He was born
hell
to do
yes,
this.
dude.
Born. Yeah.
I,
Like
I just
like do you.
people in his world now just don't know where he came from. The roots of Methven and Mount Hutt. I know. We go back. Those.
He's a total savant. I'm obsessed with him. I would
Yeah,
be wearing
Eddie.
him. It's just like, Eddie, you need to make me some cashmere pajamas. That's basically where I'm
Ooh,
at with
or some
and he's
red
probably
deer
already got
velvet.
them and I'm like, yeah.
Okay, so we've gone off
Oops.
tangent because of Eddie stuff. You Eddie. Actually, no. Back on Eddie for a quick sec. I went in there to try some stuff. I'm just too fat for his shit. I'm too big.
Yeah, I have to say, you go and
Custom
you do,
me.
yeah, you go and try some stuff on there and you like get back on your diet and
Yeah.
exercise game big time. Yeah,
Okay. We don't. Let's go from fashion to the future. Oh,
perfect.
and Aaron Lloyd's just jumped in. What is this? An EVD Love Fest? Stuff for
Pretty
you, Aaron.
much.
Do something. Do
Yeah.
something.
This show
Okay.
is a promotional broadcast.
For EVD, proudly brought to you by EVD. Eddie says, "Stop talking about me. I have your pajamas." There you go. Okay, well done. Okay, we digress. We'll move on. That's right. Future of New Zealand. Okay, go. You were saying, let's not go back to. No, no. Actually, you're talking about the
Yeah.
potential, the flights.
I was
Yes.
talking about flights and feeling separate from my parents, and this kind of really raising some deep questions for me about choosing to live offshore. Because I love the US. I love living
Mm.
here. I love what I do. I love being a bridge between New Zealand and the US and what's going on here. But this is messing with my mind.
So on that, when Jacinda was like, "Okay, if you're a Kiwi overseas, feel free to come home, like now," and like,
Yeah.
oh, like, and we just kind of like whatever. And crew came in and out. I missed the deadline by 4 hours to land, and I think it was at 5 o'clock on Monday. You have to go into 2 week quarantine. I was like, stuff it. I'll hang in San Fran for another little bit because I'll shift the things out, whatever.
Right.
And then 2 days later, Bay Area goes on lockdown. I'm like, okay, stop, shit. Okay, now I'm on lockdown here. And then New Zealand goes on lockdown. And then it's like, cool, now if you come in, it's 2 weeks. Now I'm thinking about, I was like, wait a second. So I'm imagining this next piece is going to be like only New Zealand residents, only, essential supplies and trade. That's total, and that my mind's probably the same thing in yours. I'm like, well, shit, like am I safe to go home? Where is home? And when can I
I
go? What
know.
can I do? How does this?
I know.
That's
All
funny,
the
eh?
questions, all
Same
the
thing.
questions, existential crisis, bam, right there. Look, I think here's the way I'm thinking about this. And there's not a lot we can do about it right now. We've got to do what we've got to do. We've got to stay home. We've got to keep safe. We've got to keep germ free. We've got to wash our hands. Let's not forget we have to wash our hands. Very important. And when we can, I think what's important for New Zealand specifically is to make sure it participates in the global economy as fast as it can and as fast as it's safe. Obviously, we don't want to put anyone at risk, but I worry that what this causes is a retraction. It's literally caused us all to retract, but we've got to be really quick to think about how we can move past that retraction. And I'm all about buying New Zealand made, buying US made, like supporting local markets. That's really important, but we want to be part of the global economy. I think that's where the value is for New Zealand, and that's how everyone has the lifestyle that I think everyone wants to have. And hey, if not, it needs to be a conscious choice that we want to retract the economy because we want to be safer. And that's cool too. Like that's a choice, but I believe in really conscious choice. And so let's really think about the ramifications of not participating globally quickly if that's where it lands.
Yeah, one of the things I've been wondering, and I've brought it up a couple of times, is the idea of hyperlocal resiliency to back yours, right? Like, cool, I'm going to go to that shop and go there. I'm going to go support these artists. I'm going to go support this travel, blah blah blah, whatever. But simultaneously, it's like, well, we need these international hands to be holding. We need deals to be happening. We need these other
Yeah.
sort of things moving. Then I'm thinking, well, what's this next wave going to be from not 2020 because no one's going anywhere, 21, 22, when people start physically traveling to get FaceTime again?
Yeah.
What they're going to be saying to the other side is going to be different to what they've been told before they leave. And what I'm imagining everyone's going to get told to say is like, we need to look out for ourselves. This is about resiliency. Us, number one, we need to be able to have our manufacturing, this, but simultaneously be friends with everyone. So if we need to get their shit, we can still get it.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking about the dynamics of human beings over the next 24 to 36 months, negotiating local pride and care of commerce for what they are there to do, mixed with simultaneously, I don't know if it's going to be fake smiles or whatever, it's going to be almost like co-opetition. It's not going to be one, because there's going to be two games that have been played. We need to look for our people in our land,
Global and local.
yeah,
It's not local. It's global and yeah.
but
Or
that same role is going to be the same person that was doing it because they have the relationships.
yeah.
But they're going to be two strands that are going to be doing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Look, it makes sense. And I guess where I land on this is we should be asking questions right now rather than looking for answers. And I think this is a good question to ask. And I love the 18 piece that they came out with, and I'm not even going to attempt to remember the Earth is breathing video was like stunning and actually like tear to the eye stunning, which is not, I'm not an easy target for that sort of thing, but it was beautiful. And that kind of stuff, the role Jacinda's playing internationally, the way she's looked at, those are the things where New Zealand is seen from a global audience. And maybe tourism isn't turned on straight away, but we still want people to want to come to New Zealand rather than us just kind of closing ourselves down. We want people to know about New Zealand brands and buying them, and hey, they may be being couriered or posted or whatever, but that's okay. And just thinking about it through that lens rather than just like, hey, retract, let's support ourselves. I think there's an opportunity to think a little differently on the other side of this.
Yeah, I've been thinking about halos and magnets.
Yeah.
What are them like? Jacinta is going to have a halo effect of, the goodness of global leadership with care and love, and that's going to have these good things. And it's like, well, what are the magnets that then pull? And I think the balance off between the two is going to be quite. It's a massive opportunity, especially if we look at the timing for New Zealand to the global thing. It's like, okay, cool, 4 to 3 to 2. Okay, well, shit, if New Zealand's almost back in business, and if New Zealand becomes, I've been having this idea around like hashtag back in business of what that looks like for New Zealand to the world.
Nice.
There's going to be a couple of things happen, and I've been wondering about every single country that has businesses that need to be operating, that needs to get open for business but can't. If New Zealand becomes open for business, that would mean two things. There's going to be a shit ton of businesses set up remotely, But because of the visa restrictions, I was then thinking similar skill sets in different industries that exist in New Zealand could get redeployed to be working for potential overseas companies. So there could be if they do the right thing, I'm imagining from a government perspective around setups and commerce for these different businesses to make it quite easy for these companies to get set up here, we could have huge opportunities for different employment to pop back up, because we know the way that's going to happen after this next piece. The numbers are pretty clear with what's happening, but probably to your point as well, the questions I'd be asking, like, okay, well, what does New Zealand need to look like to be that safe haven with a nice halo and a magnet for global business to set up remotely and virtually, and then to localize real human beings out and about in public? Like, what does that look like? I think these questions, they keep coming, but they get me quite excited, because then I see it's like a new slate. It's like,
yeah, and what we were, firstly, I think you're the human equivalent of the run-on sentence. That was just like perfection right there. Just like a huge single thought.
No, so what happens is, if she knows, so I do these, and then someone will be like, "What did you say?" I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I forget within. So even now, I forgot what I said, and sometimes people will send me a link. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, mean. No, cool. But my head, there's just no, I can't.
I know you on a deeper level now.
I don't know.
It's just amazing. It's just perfection. I had to call it out. I think before we started the call, we were chatting about this, and look, I think there's two pieces to this. Like, part of it is that we've got this massive desire to know and to have certainty as humans, and we can't right now. We're sitting in the space of I don't know what I don't know. We're just sitting in this massive question mark. Everyone's racing to be experts and to know everything, and we'll be open here, and we'll go from level 4 to level 3, here, and level 3 will look like this. And we're all just trying to find the certainty. And actually the smartest thing that we can do is get used to the lack of certainty and to get used to this change environment. And as part of that, I'm starting to question, there's this hyperventilation for a return to normal. And I mean, my first point is we're not going to see normal on the other side of this. And then I'm like, we need to be more imaginative than that. Like, this is actually an opportunity for a complete reframe. And I get that there's stuff that is not working, that this is not working for restaurants. This is not working for people who are running empires and have to homeschool their kids. This is not working for anyone who likes to take out pizza in New Zealand. Like, there's a lot of things about this that are not working. But that doesn't mean we have to wholesale reject them. Like, what happens if we embrace that and think, well, how could this work? And I'm really fascinated by the breathing that we've allowed our environment to do, the regeneration that's happening, and frankly, how beautiful it is to live in a world where commuting is not happening. I mean, living in LA at a major intersection where I do, that people are not commuting has just made my life a lot happier. I love where I live, but I just don't like the traffic noises. So there's a lot of, positive externalities to what's happening right now. How can we keep them and rethink the pieces that aren't working? So how can we make homeschooling work? I don't know. I mean, that's the big question for me, but I think we should be thinking that way rather than, I can't wait for. And as long, the minute blah 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 happens, and when are the kids going to school? When are they going to camp? Is the question everyone's asking here. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
That's interesting. The main thing I was saying is, like, when does the KFC drive-through open? That's the key one.
These are important questions.
Trust me, there will be traffic jam for Macca's and KFC drive-through is gonna pop it next Tuesday.
It was one of the first things I said when this happened. I'm like, what stock do you buy right now? And I was like, well, McDonald's. And my husband's like, why? And I was like, let's go check out a drive-through. It's just that's the one thing that works. Drive-through works as long as people cooking the food. I don't know if you can keep bacteria on that food though. I'm sure that's pretty safe.
Oh yeah, no, you're always safe with a good 6.
Yeah, good.
But no, it's an interesting one, because I think when it's a mindset of when this happens, then I can finally ... You're already going into it set with the
right,
the world of what you what you feel that will be after they
Yeah.
give you the right
Yeah.
to live in that. Would it make sense? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
always been of the opinion of why not dot 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 stuff that dot dot dot. And now it's great because it's forcing everyone to think lateral with what could be, and already people having to go lateral and do crazy Hail Marys commercially just to try and survive. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I think there's going to be this massive wave of, well, if we did that, then why can't we dot dot dot? Like
Yeah.
if we're, I always we had Vic Crone on the show a little bit ago, and she was saying it
Mm-hmm.
is blowing my mind at how fast things can actually happen when the people really want
Oh
to.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
like, preach. And then because I said, well, what's going to happen is as soon as everyone's back out of this, you're going to be like, well, we did that, so why we
Yeah.
radically transformed a flipping, this to that, or within different other big organizations. There's going to be so much ammo coming out of it. Like, almost, it's going to be it's going to be like Survivor. You won't last, you won't last, you won't last. But also, we'll take this, we'll take that, we'll shift it around. How do you think business leadership and decisions will actually change after this? Do you think, or you hope?
I really hope for many reasons. I really hope the remote working becomes, working from home becomes a more steady state and a more acceptable and highly used thing. I appreciate that that's going to cause problems for commercial real estate, people in the commercial real estate business. That's something that we'd need to figure out. But just the upside of that, I believe, works significantly. I think that what we're seeing is kind of proof of why we need to have an agile workforce and smaller teams. So I think that being digital first and being oriented to devolving ownership of projects to smaller groups is going to be obvious coming out the back of that. So I'd like to think we start to orient ourselves to that. The big one, to be a bit dorky about it though, is balance sheet management. Like I
Go
just,
there.
well, you coming through this, I want to make sure I've always got enough like fuel in the balance sheet to really like allow my company to go the distance if we had to shut down. I mean, basically, we've just had to figure out how to operate businesses with a zero revenue, in a zero revenue environment. And the funny thing for me is like, I'm like, oh, that's like startups. I know how to do that. That's that's really easy. Like that's like cool. Got it. So like for me, that's really natural. But actually, to be in big organizations where we're thinking that way is really new. And coming out the other side of this, I'm going to be wanting to do it a lot more with fewer. Now, I'd like to still employ the same number of people, but I'd like to have my business grow at so I want to get a lot more bang for my employee buck. And I don't want to do that, let me be clear, by being a taskmaster and a somebody said to me the other day, I feel like a corporate drone. And I was like, oh, that's totally not where we want you to be. We don't want you feeling that way, but I get it because you're at home and Friday blurs into Saturday, blurs into Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, living over here, my Sunday is New Zealand Monday. So I'm naturally working that day. So I literally lose track of the days. And I can imagine for someone in the middle of the organization with this all going on, you're on Zoom calls all the time. You don't know what's going on email. Like you are going to feel that way. So I want to drive a lot of ownership of stuff down through organizations. I want teams and individuals to come alive with the work that they're doing. I'm a massive fan of OKRs to do that, to really drive transparency of company objectives through the organization. I think they do some serious heavy lifting, and that has been my orientation for a while, and now I feel like I have permission to actually be pretty bolshy about that.
Yeah. It's perfect leading to the next piece because I've been wondering how there's two parts. One is I think that now everyone's been forced to go virtual, is it's exposing weak leaders and it's creating tribes around the great. Simultaneously, I'm then thinking how does it's one of the questions I asked right on the first one of these. We had Jolie Hodson, a CEO of Spark, and I was like, how do you like scale culture remotely, you know, and if you think about there's a million different businesses there's a million different nuances to all of them, but they all use Zoom. What's the point of difference? I get a link, I click it, I'm into it. Okay, cool. Now what? And obviously we've seen the first wave, which is
Yeah.
the boss wears a hat on a Friday, or there's, there's virtual drinks, or there's, you know what I mean? Like there's these, but that's the start of the thinking. And the reason why I'm always like, but then what? Why? It's like, oh, because they want to try and create like that connection piece. Okay, well, what's that next piece? And it's like that craving for human connection and culture is almost organically sprouting up, ideas for virtual connection. And then if I'm in a startup that's virtual, or if I'm in a big telco or a $1 billion publicly listed entity, what does my experience feel like remotely? Because if all of a sudden a corporate now is on the same playing field as a startup, there's no reason that they can't be using those same methodologies, if not thinking, and stealing it the other way to create the coolest corporate culture remotely, virtually. Do you know what I mean? And
For real.
And I'm wondering, I'm like,
totally.
well, what
but
is
why
that?
haven't they before? Because we've been too busy doing all this stuff that felt important, and suddenly now a lot of that's evaporated.
Yeah.
So, I'll post to LinkedIn after this. There's a couple of cool pieces on thinking a little bit differently about how we work, and one of them's a podcast that I'm almost at the end of. It's so damn long. It's like an hour and a half, which I listen to them when I go out for walks, and I busted my back, so I'm like not walking as much as I was. Yeah, serious. There's some serious hobbling going on. It's embarrassing. But the Sam Harris is interviewing the CEO, and I'm forgetting his name in the company. It's I should remember, but I can't.
Some weapon.
But and the point that he made that I think was really, really interesting is that there's a lot of opportunity to drive culture digitally. And ultimately, I come down on the side of, I think we got lazy. I think we were using the fact that we were co-locating as an excuse for culture. I think we used Friday night drinks as an excuse for culture. Like, that's actually not culture. Culture like hides in like the rituals that you have, and the way the way you wear hats on a Friday, or that actually it's an employee suggesting that and the boss picks it up and does it. Like, that's culture. Culture is like really sneaky and really hidden, and you've got to nurture it. You got to be looking for it. You got to know where to find it. And I don't think got these new headphones, and they are just
What are you on the pros?
The pros, but honestly, I think my ears are shrinking every time I go down a size with the little things.
You gotta swap the ones out. They're a bit funky to pick off too.
I don't know. So sorry, I'm like,
do you?
So I think we've gotten lazy, and I think what we think is culture is not. And I think that you can do as good a job, and I'd even say potentially a better job. The person being interviewed mentioned communication, which I'm a huge fan of. I write a blog every Monday. Hits New Zealand every Tuesday, because I want to communicate kind of what I'm thinking about. And I did this when I was working with NZTE as well. I always send an email out every Monday of just like, hey, here's just something to get you thinking. And sometimes it was just some silly video or a show I'd watch on Netflix or whatever. They were always short. And I think those kind of things, like, you see most of those internally, and they're kind of average. They're not the CEO going, this is the most important thing I do today / this week. So I think there's a huge opportunity at the end of the day.
I've been wondering about organic culture through scaled intent, right? Like, I've never met Richard Branson, but I can imagine what that feels like to work for him, even though I may not meet him. And then, so I've been thinking about that for a last little while, and then this whole virtual thing's popped up, and I'm like, man, there's going to be some mega opportunities for this tribalism virtually. Then I got to my headspace was around, we were judging the high tech awards again this year, and the category I was in, we got down to a couple of the candidates, and we were trying to talk through two of them. And obviously I'm not going to get in trouble and say who won because they haven't come out yet. But
I know, we could both do that and be in so much trouble right now. You know one category, I know another one.
But I go, I would jump on a rocket ship to make $1 billion with this candidate, but I'd go to war with this candidate.
Yeah. No, I like the
And
way you're thinking about
and
it.
it was a different, and everyone was like, because they were trying to go the channel, and then they were like, got it. And it's a different way
Yeah,
of like the feeling of like, and I've never met either of these people, right? And
yeah,
so I'm sitting there and I'm like,
a cool point.
how do you, is there a hack between, I don't know if it's authentic leadership like a Craig Hudson, or if it's a bit of humor that pops through with a Jason, or if it's a like there's something in there that I think has massive power, because if you get that the 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 buy-in power of intent through a leadership like a Branson virtually could literally 5x a business to copy paste old mate stuff you John, this is how we do it, there's your cubicle drone, your corporate drone.
Yeah.
That's a business tangible outcome that changes intent, it changes connection, it changes communication, it changes output, it changes. So there's all these kind of things that I've been wondering about, and I'm kind of looking back here. I'm like, if you're resetting this whole shit, and you're now even just your headspace talking about the balance sheets, talking about like a zero revenue environment. Like I've never heard that before, but at the same time, I'm like, you're flipping right. Like holy shit,
Yeah, we
why?
had to
Why?
model that way. We had to model that way
Yeah.
because we didn't know what was going to happen. So that
Mm,
becomes the most prudent thing to do. And it's a great exercise, by the way. Like I think
jeez.
everyone should do that. It's interesting what you're saying. So I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink's work. He wrote the book Drive, which was a lot about self-determinism and how you can drive employees to really step up and kind of direct their own traffic, and essentially as a way to get the best out of people. And there's so much great work in that space. And I think what you're talking about is basically driving towards
Mm,
that. So, I, again, going back to OKRs, it's a system for sharing the objectives of the organization, but like down through the organization. So every team and every layer steps up and says, this is what I can do. This is what I think I should be doing to contribute to this top level
yeah.
corporate objective. And so, effectively what you do when you do that is you're telling employees, hey, I'm interested in what you're thinking. There's a really interesting balance for me though at the moment, because if I think about like Maslow's pyramid of
Yeah.
needs, we suddenly and immediately got slammed into the bottom. We're all like happily working our way up to
Yeah.
self-actualization, maybe, but certainly above security,
No, we got the
food,
app. We
food,
got the app.
shelter. We
We
got
got
the
the
app
app.
for that, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like trying to work our way up the pyramid, and then like overnight we're like slammed into the bottom. And I think we have to be a little conscious of that as leaders at the moment too. Like a lot of people have basal needs, and just being really conscious of that as well before we like open the floodgates to, hey, what do you want to do? What are you thinking about? Like, I think there's a
Mm,
couple of baby steps that we need to do before we get there. But I really like what you're saying. And it, again, I think it comes back to declaring
mm,
publicly, whatever that is, whether it's within the organization or more broadly, who you are and what you're about, and then allowing discovery around that. I was on a
mm.
call with someone from the help desk at one of the companies I work with, and we were just setting something up remotely, and then he texted me later and was like, whoa, I just like read up on you and I hadn't realized what you'd done, and like you're so cool. And I was like, well, yeah, hey, thanks. And he was like, oh, I'd really like to chat at some point. And I was like, of course, yeah, let's do that. That would have never happened in
Mm,
the before world. And that's not to say that I can do a million calls for a million people, but hey, he's the first random person
mm,
to put his hand up and ask. And how can we generate that more in organizations? Like we have boards of directors. I'm on boards, with phenomenal people, like such interesting people, and all very different. And a lot of people I wouldn't ordinarily kind of get to know or know their skill set. And that happens, and you have an environment where there's an ability to connect with them within a corporate structure, that's going to light you up. To your point about Richard
mm.
Branson, maybe you wouldn't go to war for them, but you'd certainly understand their perspective, and I think be a lot more oriented to where the company's going. So I think there's tons
Mm.
short form, the short story. I think there's heaps and heaps and heaps of opportunity for this, and I think we've gotten lazy. And let's
Mm.
just not be like, oh, when is it? When are we returning to normal? Like, let's ask ourselves more challenging questions than that.
Yeah, it was like what I'm intrigued with is, business as usual 2.0, what they decide to, the filter they put on it to what to keep and not keep with the way they operate moving forward.
Huge question.
Right, and then it's going to be, okay, well, what's the methodology or the thinking behind that? Is it out of comfort? Is it out of fear? Is it out of, you know the these next leadership decisions coming out of it? I mean, now obviously everyone's strategically thinking about what they're going to do, how they're going to, all the rest of it. The crazy amount of pivots is going to be one thing, but there's
Yeah.
also going to be simultaneously not only the shock of going to zero, the repivot to try and survive, the then I can see the end of the tunnel because I get to go to the beach and go for a surf, to then I'm back in the office, but holy shit, I'm 80% revenue down. I've still got 100% of the staff that have gone through the subsidy. Now what? Dot, dot, dot. Like these I see them as waves, right? I'm quite visual. So I'm like, okay, cool. Wave, boom, reset.
Yeah.
Yep. Next wave, there's the end of the tunnel. Yep, cool. Now I'm back in. Now what? If I go BAU, but then I'm 80% down, the next wave is going to be destruction. But then instantly now it's like, okay, well, where does my headspace need to be to what that world looks like at these points to see what the opportunities actually are? Like even the other day, Tim Alp from Juicy,
Yep.
He's sitting there and he's like, dude, I've got all these flipping uh, hotels and unused sort of spaces. So then I linked them up with the crew at Women's Refuge, and
Yeah.
now there's a space for Safe Night. So you got kind of real
Ugh,
lateral thinking
that's
happening
great.
across all of it, and you're just like, yes, okay. So then when you come into this new world, exactly to your point, I don't want it to be that conversation of like back to how, like, just back into it. And I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a split though. Like I really feel that there's going to be this tension between business as usual. I'm calling it, like, I've got this thing that I've been calling it, like, called PC pre-COVID, AC after COVID. AC after COVID, there's going to be the lazier defense leaders who are going to be like, okay, we're back into it, team. And then there's going to be the offense crew of like, it's a new world, let's go. And there's going to be mad beef internally at board and CEO level between what they take to the new world, what they don't, what it should be and what it shouldn't, what makes sense commercially now to the future. And so there's kind of these new train tracks that we're on. And the train tracks is, it's clear it's digital first, we're cloud, we're in, we're rolling. But now it's all of a sudden, okay, well, what are we building on it? Do we build something
Yeah.
for that into this new one? And I think that gets me excited. But at the same time, I can see some big mistakes that leaders are going to make in these next 3 months, based not on where the future is going, but based on when the insecurities of what they don't either understand. And that gets me a bit. I'm like, I'm going to be really interested to see leadership from afar and how it actually translates to the real world after this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like, yeah, because you can sense it in a couple of different businesses already with how people are doing. But
Yeah, look, and there's always winners and losers when something like this happens. And, my best advice for a leader right now is have a look at your board and make sure you've got enough innovative thinking and challenge around you, as uncomfortable as that might be. And the second thing I would say is really question if you're sitting in the I don't know what I don't know space. And if you are, it means you'll be very uncomfortable right now, and that's actually fine. It's like, that's not a bad thing that you feel that way. It's actually a good barometer that you're fully acknowledging what's going on. And then I think the final thing is, I really like for people and businesses alike, it's a very kind of meta practice or process, but I like to sit down and go, what are the problems I'm trying to solve? Like really high level, what are the problems I'm trying to solve? And what are my assets? Like, what am I really good at? Where are my good teams? Where are my good people? And just sit back. You can do this as a person too. And then you just sit back and look at what I'm trying to solve and what my assets are, and A, match them up, but B, look for where the gaps are and start to bring in people or support or do some learning or whatever it is in the areas that you have gaps. And just I'm trained as a lawyer, so I always, in a complex environment, like to make it as simple as I can. I think that's, we learned when we were reading a contract to slice up the sentence and read it in component parts to understand what all of the different pieces meant and then bring it together. And I go back to that time and time again, just get really foundational and get really, really simple and make sure that you are actually seeing, yes, the woods for the trees, or however, that saying goes, that really make sure you have clarity over the big picture and that very foundational picture, and act from there rather than getting stuck in all of the little tiny, pieces of the business that you will get stuck in inevitably.
It's like forced, gnarly strategic thinking, which many people aren't comfortable with, and they're not used to it. They're not used to a 360 attack at every different part of their business that they need to then think about for the future. But I like that approach of like where those gaps, and even just, you know, a couple of different people we've been talking to, it's like, you know, we have these physical bricks and mortar assets, we have this level of skill set within our capabilities of the people that exist within an organization,
we have these allies, we have these partnership opportunities.
It's a chef.
All of that.
You're a business, you're a commercial chef looking at and you're like, all right, what am I going to
100%. 100%. You're a commercial chef in quarantine. I got bananas. I got bread. I don't have yeast. Banana bread it is.
No,
and that's why everyone's making banana bread right now.
We just got a heads up. Bro, Virgin Australia just collapsed. I'm just looking at thing.
It's a shame.
Half an hour ago. Jeez. Well, the government didn't, but I mean, that just kind of, that goes across, that's a crossover between
I'm trying
travel,
to think,
logistics and brand.
Somebody called that. Somebody I know said that Virgin would be the first to go. Who said that? I can't remember. Yeah. What a shame.
Ty says, what was the name of that author, writer Claudia mentioned who writes about self-determination?
Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink, and his book is Drive.
Daniel Pink, Drive. There you go, Ty. Cool cat, by the way.
Meow.
Yeah, do you get excited or scared when you think about what you think about?
Oh, so excited. So excited. And I think actually, just to pick up on a point you made before about strategic thinking, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by that because they make it too deep. I'm just like looking for nuggets. I'm looking for little ways through, and I'll go in and I'll test them. Like I'll give it a go, or I'll A/B test it or whatever. I get so excited, and I'm obsessed with change. I love change. Like it drives me, literally fuels me. And you know, the minute this hit, I just go into, I guess, battle mode. But then I'm a lawyer who's done startup. I'm just like, my training is crisis.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like I'm good in this. I'm good in this scenario. This lights me up.
Ty says, awesome. Thanks so much.
You're
Ty,
welcome,
what's the name of your cat? Looks like is it a female? And give us a story about your cat. That'd be great. Yeah. So one of my headspace got to a funky spot after the lockdown piece when I always felt, I don't know if it's the same with you, but I always felt if I'm physically not in the room, one of my biggest assets is either EQ to feel or sense or energy, right? And I always would feel if I'm not in the room in New Zealand, if I'm in the States or wherever I'm at, that I would be behind. Like I would be losing mentally for myself because I couldn't, you know, force shit through, or just energy, momentum, all that shit. And then when this happened, I remember it was a Sunday and I was sitting there and I had all my shit, and then all of a sudden something hit me and I was like, wait a second, every competitor who potentially wants to go against me for anything I'm into is in a similar spot to myself. It might be a 20 by 10 room. It's going to be a laptop, a camera, and a microphone. Go. And then my brain just went to, wait a second, I'm scrappier than anyone. I'll flip and hustle this shit out. And all of a sudden I kind of started getting like some flipping Wolf of Wall Street. Some of that shit. I got real hyped and I was like, dude, yes, okay, sweet, flipping in. And I was like, I know how to do this, boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden it was really weird that it kind of felt like the world came into where I play. And then I'm like, okay, sweet, offense, let's go. And weirdly enough, I've actually probably been busier virtually than I actually would be physically in New Zealand, even though I do lots of shit in New Zealand, which is quite weird. And I think, I don't know if it's for yourself, but has your time prioritized where you've got way more efficient, shorter with time? Or how have you navigated that? Yeah.
I'm really quick at doing things. I'm pretty obsessed with productivity, so I know how to do things well, how to whiz through my inbox quickly, how to prioritize, you know, so I'm a good manager of my time. I have been so I don't like the word busy. I've been very in demand with working with the companies I work with. There's been a lot of stuff for us to figure out. It's been great and it's worked really well, but I've been on the phone a lot, and a lot of the time it's short order. So there are just days where there were a couple of days where I just lost my entire morning because I'm up early. New Zealand comes online a lot later, and so I'm just kind of waiting to progress something, waiting for people to come online. And I'm literally just kind of sitting there trying to manage something to happen. So there's been a lot going on. I've been reading more. I mean, I'm a huge reader, and the amount of reading I've been doing at the moment is unbelievable. I just know that I've just got to cram as much information in my brain so that when stuff happens, it's kind of pre-processed and I can start to put pieces together. And I'm not really reading about predictions, and I'm not trying to train myself to be an epidemiologist. Like, I'm not doing that stuff. I'm just reading on strategy and reading what people are talking about and trying to get a pulse check of what's going on. So I work remotely anyway. This is very natural and normal for me. I like it. It's been like on steroids lately. I've been loving that. I would say there's two things from what you just said before. I mean, the first is in terms of being physically present. And I think it's a really good point. I would counter that. I've found the deepest conversations I've had and the most thoughtful conversations I have are on the phone. And my belief is that it removes a lot of senses. And so all you really are doing, if you're being an active listener, is just listening into the person and probing them and asking big questions. And you really start to get to the meat of the issue. It's a lot easier if you've met the person in person. So, I'm not going to discount that at all. But I think there are huge I find I can be a lot more present in a remote environment than in person, because I'm very aware of my surroundings and my senses are highly tuned, and so that has an impact on me. So I think that's one piece.
What about reading people?
I can read fine. It's totally fine. I use questions a lot for that, and I really listen to tone of voice. I listen to what people are not saying. Like, it's become I think it's become a skill I've really honed because I've had to be on a lot of calls and I've negotiated a lot over the phone, and I can get gut reads off of people. Like, I've made a few calls on deals we were doing that turned out to be right, just purely from listening. So I think that is something we can all be working on practicing as a skill right now. And I think it's taken me time, but hey, why not start now? The other point to your bounce back from like, holy shit, to right, I can do this. Like, I'm just imagining the adrenaline.
Just get hyped. Just
Power up. And I'm the same, but we're probably super resilient people. There are a lot of people who haven't had their resilience tested. I've had a good amount of knocks. I've had a good amount of stress situations that have helped me learn to do that. And I just kind of want to offer compassion to people who are maybe listening who aren't feeling that and who are kind of wondering, why have I not? And that's totally fine. And please make sure that you're surrounding yourself with friends and family and folks who you can talk to about that. No one's judging anyone at the moment for how they feel. I'm having the rawest, most honest conversations with some pretty, heavy hitting people. So make sure you reach out to folks, but also practice it. Like, resilience is a skill, and, it happens when we fall off the bike and get back on again. It's scary. But we do it, and we maybe fall over, but we eventually figure it out. And so just have a think, an exercise you could just do is like, where is an area that I feel a little verklempt, a little tight about, and maybe don't want to do it. Give yourself a challenge and go, I'm going to actually do that this week. And I'm going to get a little gold star on my resilience chart, and slowly find little things like that you can do. And you'll start to build a little bit of that armory as well.
Resiliency is a skill. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, mine would always be, without getting too much into it, there's a spot I rented a bathtub in winter and meth and put all my shit in the bathtub and a foam mat down the ground. That's where I slept, right? I was just like, how I rolled $40 a week. And, I was just drinking Up and Goes and Mountain Dews and toast. And,
great diet. That is a winning diet. Winning.
But I remember moments of where I was, and then in my head, the resiliency was like, no, no, I don't. You've got now because I know that, and you take all the other shit away. I know I've been darker and deeper, and so I don't take that as a poor me, poor me. I put that as no. Now that gives me more ammo to then know that I can go gnarlier, to go deeper. So in my headspace, and plus I'm a sport competitive bastard, so I'm just as well. But no, you're
Yeah.
exactly right because I think it comes down to. And it's something I said a while ago, and maybe it's a good time around of this idea. I said, innovation is bravery in action,
Mm,
where for you to innovate, it means you're doing something separate and different to what everyone else is doing. But to do that, you need to have internal bravery first to do something different
it's a great
externally
point.
secondly. And
Yeah.
then when I look at businesses and this and that, now it's like, cool, well, you can draw up all the flipping best, giddy up strats of how you're going to pivot this shit out or whatever. But it doesn't mean anything because you're not going to act on it if you're not
Yeah.
brave first to be away from the
Yeah.
pack. And then I was on a call, this little call with the ups, and I was like, every single rule is gone. Every single thing is up flipping window. Every single linear way you think how it could be done is flipping finished. So write all that shit off and just go for the flipping ninja move straight off the bat because
Yep.
the ninja move is the new normal. Because
Yep.
right now, if you do a proposal to someone for a pitch for a thing, they're not playing. They're not doing that shit now. It's done. That no,
Yep.
no, no. It's all different ninja shit. So my kind of take on it was now's the time to go ninja. Like just what
Totes. Yeah.
some lateral weird. And as a buddy of mine, he's in a sector that he's had a 97% business loss, and he's had to let go of 95% of his stuff, and I sent him a link of a NFL best the best lateral plays, and basically the lateral is like it goes to zero, and they keep throwing the ball around. It just keeps going nuts to try and do it, and it's just like 10 minutes of just you're watching the gnarliest hail marys of all time, and I was like, new business plan, and I just sent him the thing, and he was like straight hail
I
marys,
love
and I was
it.
like hell yeah, and so like he's in a tough spot and thing, and to get like positivity back from that, it just changes the mindset of like how your headspace going into it can change a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So this
interesting.
is huge for me because effectively what you're describing is what I call squiggling, which I've been kind of talking about for ages now. And the goal of it is to not seek progressive measured steps forward, and it's designed for a change environment, and we're in a change environment right now. And so I get really excited hearing you speak about this. And I mentioned earlier, like I look for the little things I can test and try. And so yeah, they could be
Mm,
ninja moves, but they don't have to even be that big. They can just be little things, big things,
mm,
whatever. But the goal in this environment is to test. And
mm.
one of the theories I love for this, and I can post, there's a really cool article in a blog called The Art of Manliness. So I'll make sure I
Oh my
share
god.
that link. It's actually a really good blog. The guy's very thoughtful, but it's the most hilarious blog
Okay,
title.
I'm gonna write it down. Yeah.
But he talks about a guy called Colonel John Boyd, and he was a U.S. Fighter pilot, and he created something called the OODA link, OODA, and it's observe, orient, decide, and act. And the whole goal of this, it's actually designed from being a fighter pilot, where of course you're going at breakneck speed, and you're trying to fight somebody else who's probably just as intellectual and just as good at playing. And his whole theory is that what you want to do is observe your surroundings. You want to orient yourself. And he talks about this being the most important step. So truly understanding where you are and what your environment is and what's going on and what direction you need to head in. And then you decide what you're going to do, and then you act, and then the loop begins again. So what you're
Mm,
constantly doing in a change environment is this kind of decision process, and it's not linear, and it's not actually something that you can put together in a plan and start executing the steps. Like as you said, that business plan that you wrote, like throw it away. It's just garbage now. Or maybe don't throw it away, recycle it.
yeah, yeah.
But this is the environment we're in right now. And
Mm,
honestly, the hugest part in this, and hopefully this resonates, is we have to look at ourselves. Like a huge piece of this, a huge piece of resilience, a huge piece of bravery, a huge piece of innovation is us actually understanding ourselves really well. And so, I mean, that's
mm,
the other thing I would do as a leader right now is just go, how how well tuned to who I am I? What sound like a Dr. Seuss
Yeah. No, no.
book. But really, this is a good time for self-awareness. This is a really good time to understand what you're scared of, what you're not scared of, what you're willing to do. Are you willing to give it all up so that if it put it all on the table so that if it goes wrong you're living in a bathtub? I mean, hopefully that's extreme. I would not want to be doing that with my back the way it is right now, but
I said on the floor. My gear was in the bathtub.
Oh, your gear's in the bathtub on the floor. No, I can do that all day long. So with up and go energy drinks and toast. So I think it's a really good time for learning a little bit about yourself and understanding where you sit, because you don't get in a jet and go be a fighter pilot without actually having some serious cojones, right? And knowing you're willing to make the moves and execute the moves. And I think that's a huge piece of where we are right now. Otherwise, you're just phoning it in. You're just following a blueprint. Yeah, and the blueprints aren't going to work. We've never there's never been a better time to use the word unprecedented. We've never experienced this in our lifetimes. We don't know what this is going to do. So, yeah, and I believe this is a massive opportunity for some serious change and some serious force for good.
Yeah. What do you think, before we go, what do you think is the biggest opportunity that you think New Zealand has AC after COVID?
Gosh. I think through the lens of what you were talking about before and kind of how I'm thinking about the companies I work with, I think we've been a bit slow on the digital uptick, to be honest. I think we're behind on e-commerce. We're not naturally inclined to digital first. We're not naturally inclined to cloud. Talking more about the big businesses, but also from a consumer standpoint. I think the opportunity for us to compete in a global market and to get more than just a few cents on a commodity product is for us to really spin ourselves digitally and figure out how we can, be that remote work organization that's sharing our culture with the world, that has everyone wanting to participate, but has a lot of people going, well, I can't afford to buy, a ticket. They talk with the luxury goods companies often put out products that are at a cheaper price point because, people can't afford the big fancy bag, but they can buy a pair of sunglasses, right? If we get really radically on a digital edge, I think that we can start to sell a lot of sunglasses and the expensive bags. And I think that would be environmentally smart for New Zealand. I think it'd be smart for New Zealand businesses. And there's a lot of infrastructural pieces in there that we could really strengthen to the benefit of the long-term benefit of the country, and the short-term benefit as we remote work and potentially continue to. That was a good question, though.
That's a great answer. Drop the flipping hammer on that last one. That was good. Drop the flipping hammer. Epic yarning. Thanks for your time. I know you got a million things going on, and you're very in demand. In demand, Claudia. I know you're very in demand.
Not busy.
No, in demand. In demand. I've been demanded of. Stay safe, stay good, and I'll when I get to LA, wine's on me.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Thanks Robett.
See you soon. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Good human. Another weapon. Great chats. Deep thinking. Smart brains. Good day. And she got something that, what was the ODA? Observe, orient, decide, or design? Decide, act. Solid. Good chats, team. Claudia Batten. Absolute machine. And if you're one of the few who don't realize how much of a flippin' weapon that chick is, it's called Google. So epic. Shot team. See you soon.